And pass the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the outset, my delegation would want to thank Malta for organizing this briefing on addressing the consequences of the denial of humanitarian access for children during armed conflict. I also want to thank the briefers and especially the Deputy Executive Director for UNICEF, Mr. Ted Scheiban. I have listened very carefully to the briefing made by Madame Virginia Gamba, and I have been astonished that not a single word have been said to the dire situation of the children in Gaza. And thus, while all delegation around this table, all delegation within the Security Council highlighted the devastating consequences of the denial of humanitarian assistance to the children in Gaza. Madam President, my delegation welcomes the topic of this briefing, particularly as it allows to emphasize the devastating impact of the denial of humanitarian assistance can have on the well-being of children. Currently, we confront a horrifying reality. The denial of humanitarian access leaves children in the crosshairs of conflict. The dire humanitarian situation in Gaza is a vivid example. The Israeli occupying power in Palestine has for months deliberately denied humanitarian access, leading to terrible humanitarian consequences, notably causing children to die from malnutrition, dehydration, starvation, and lack of health care. Those who will survive will be scared for life, unable to grow and develop as they would have had in a normal situation. Their dreams have been shattered. In February 2024, UNICEF indicated that in the Gaza Strip, children are dying in an alarming rate. Thousands have been killed and thousands more injured. Around 1.6 million people are estimated to have been internally displaced, half of them children, counting more than 17,000 wounded children with no surviving family. More than 600,000 children are now trapped in Rafah alone, with nowhere safe to go. UNRWA reported that in Gaza, more children have been killed in recent months than in 4 years of conflict worldwide. Madam President, today, as we gather, children in many parts of the world continue to be victims of constraints on humanitarian aid, which in some cases aim to be extreme. This Council, including through its Working Group on Children and Armed Conflict, alongside the Office of the SRG for Children and Armed Conflict and the Monitoring and Reporting Mechanism, have a responsibility on the fate of children affected by war. A further work is needed for strengthening the international response to a humanitarian crisis, inter alia by empowering monitoring mechanisms, including by enhancing data collection, advocating for safe and hindering passage for humanitarian workers and supplies without precondition, adding the denial of humanitarian assistance among the violations that trigger the listing of parties on the Annex 1 of the annual report of the Secretary General on children and armed conflict, related to grave violation affecting children in situation of armed conflicts, on the agenda of our Security Council. Madam President, children are affected out of proportion by armed conflict, especially by the 6 grave violations condemned by the Security Council. Children should not be trapped in conflicts and denied a lifeline. Let this meeting be a catalyst for action. Let us hold perpetrators accountable and prioritize a safe access to humanitarian assistance in order to ensure that the needs of children in armed conflict are met. Together, we can build a world where children are not anymore victims of war, but beacons of hope for a peaceful future. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria.